The Blue Jays dropped a bomb in game one. The Dodgers dropped Yamamoto in game two. But what if the Pirates dropped their best team of the century into this fight? Let's build it and find out.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pirates. The 2025 World Series is tied 1-1. The Blue Jays exploded offensively in game one, only to be silenced by Yamamoto's dominance in game two. It's a heavyweight fight. But what if the Pirates entered the ring with their best roster of the 21st century? Today, we build that team and ask the big question, could they hang with the Dodgers and Blue Jays? Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. World Series has been fun so far. 2 games. The Blue Jays offense went absolutely nuclear in game one. Vlad Jr., Springer, Kirk, they led a 9-run inning. The Dodgers bullpen just completely collapsed. They were unable to contain the rally at all, and it just completely got away from them. And it looked like it was going to go the other way. The Dodgers were chipping away against Yusevich early on, and Blake Snell escaped early trouble. But the Blue Jays kept their same exact approach against Blake Snell. They continued to hunt walks against him and work his pitch count into ridiculous territory. And Snell goes right along with that. He's either going to walk you or strike you out, and the Blue Jays were more than happy to let him do either of those, at least until they got him up around 75 pitches, and then they just started going off on him. And then game two, Yamamoto was just electric. 7 shutout innings, 10 Ks, pinpoint command. I mean, he has looked every bit like the best pitcher in the game. I know Paul Skeens is going to probably win that Cy Young, and he should, but Yamamoto is going to be competition for him for years to come, especially if he stays completely healthy one year. There's not a lot that gets in his way. Dodgers offense did just enough. Freeman and Betts were great. Will Smith again comes through. You know, the Blue Jays thrive on clutch hitting and depth. The Dodgers rely on elite pitching and star power. It's going to be a back and forth battle this entire series. I'm looking forward to watching it continue, especially out on the West Coast. I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like it's going to come back to Toronto, don't you? I mean, I feel like there's almost no way that the Dodgers are just going to sweep those 3 games out there. The Blue Jays are just a little too pesky for them. It feels to me like they're going to get some of their own. And it should be a fun matchup, really. I mean, the Dodgers are continuing to throw all-star starters at you, and the Blue Jays are no slouch either there. They've got a decent rotation that can shut down just about anybody at any given time. I'm really looking forward to it. The Blue Jays approach, I think, is what sets them apart. Yeah, they hit a lot of home runs in that route in game one. But that's not their approach at all. Their approach is patience when it requires it, singles if that's all they can get, choking up on the bat and making sure they make contact, moving guys forward. I think the Blue Jays approach is so pure. And it's something that I want to talk about as this week progresses too a little bit, because it's funny, you know, they moved on from Matt Haig. They have a brand new hitting coach in town. They're having one of the best seasons that the Blue Jays have ever had. And I would tell you, just from interviews I've heard and things I've read, it doesn't sound as though they changed their hitting philosophy all that much, really. It's pretty much what they've been trying to do. It's what Matt Haig is supposedly trying to do here in Pittsburgh. Sounds almost verbatim the Pirates' plan. And I think that's, I don't know, probably more indicative of the talent level than it is anything else. I certainly don't think I can sit here and say, oh, well, that Toronto team would have sucked if Matt Haig stayed there. There's no way they would have hit like that. I don't think that's the truth. I think most of the time these discussions are really about the players. We love to talk about the coaches because the coaches are the only ones on the field that are doing anything that we truly tangibly think we could do. We envision ourselves as knowing how the game should be played and being able to point at the right things and move people into the right positions and play the right guys and put together the right lineups and shift guys. But we fancy that we could do that. It doesn't take athletic skill. We could yell at the right people strategically, right? I mean that. So I think a lot of the time that's why we tend to go straight to the coaches, but most of the time this answer really is about the players. It's not about being coached poorly. Nobody is coaching people to stink. Okay. The Pirates hitting philosophy, the problem has been it seeks to accentuate the lowest common denominator in a hitter, as opposed to accentuate whatever that hitter does best. You need different types of hitters to do different types of things, and the Pirates tend to train all of their hitters to a certain baseline. It's not a lot different than the pitching philosophies of yesteryear, in which the Pirates would try to force everybody to throw a two-seam fastball, whether they were comfortable with it or not. And just in case you thought they kind of learned the lesson, well, come to find out, not really, because they were still hammering on Quinn Priester that he needed to be able to throw a high fastball that never made him comfortable. And the team that ultimately had success with him was the one that said, yeah, you still got to throw it, but you don't need to throw it an awful lot. Throw what you're happy with, kid. So there's still some things there. I probably shouldn't have gotten into the Pirates so early in this conversation because it was supposed to be primarily about this World Series matchup, but I'm kind of so geeked about this idea of going through this quarter century of Pirates baseball and seeing if I can put together a good team that I kind of just had them on my mind, and it made me think about what's going on here. I don't think the Blue Jays are spectacular. I don't. I look at their lineup and yes, I see a lot of guys who can handle the bat. I don't see a lot of guys who are going to lead you to anything. Vladdy Jr. is having an incredible year, and I think he's playing the type of baseball that will lead you to something. But that's not the type of baseball he's always played. So I'm not sure what changed that. Was it coaching? It could have been. Maybe somebody finally got through to him. Maybe Vladdy was one of those guys who, like, the contract negotiation with Toronto had been dragging on for so long and so many years. It was so in his head that he just kind of lost focus of who he is until they got that taken care of, and then suddenly everything kind of came back to him. Like, I can do this. I can be the leader. I'm gonna be that guy here. I love the way they put that team together, though. And it was so cool seeing Dalton Varsho hit that home run the other night, because I just kept thinking about Gary Varsho. And, I know I heard them talking about it a little bit even in the broadcast. And I saw Jeff Karstens actually talk about it on X. This is a kid that was like just taking batting practice as like a 10-year-old from guys like Jeff Karstens when he would come with his dad to the ballpark. And it's so cool seeing guys like that, and Jacob Wilson, seeing the kids of the guys that I kind of grew up watching play now and play at such a high level. Man, it's so much fun to watch. It really is. So, hey, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, let's jump right into it. Let's build the Pirates all 2000s roster. I'm going to do the very best I can. I hope you disagree with me. I can't wait to see the comments about who you would put in instead of me. Let's do this. And then in segment 3, we'll kind of talk about how it might match up with the World Series companions, right? What do you think? Sound fun? I think so. Let's do it. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter big comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game interesting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Pardon my voice. I got a little bit of a cold starting up. Hopefully it doesn't get worse as the week goes on. Listen, every time we do things like this where I'm kind of like going back through past teams or even current teams, I tend to not want to deal with the pitching, and it's mostly because it's so messy. Let's start with the pitching today. Let's do it. Let's start with the pitching. If I were to pick starting pitchers, all right, here's where I'm going, okay? Again, you guys are free to disagree with me. I kind of hope you do. I kind of hope I missed something. Here would be my 5 starters. Paul Skeens, Francisco Liriano, AJ Burnett, Garrett Cole, and then I toiled with this one, but I'm going Mitch Keller. I think Mitch Keller has been here a long time. You know, up until last season, he was leading the team in right-handed strikeouts. It's not like he hasn't been successful. Mitch Keller would be my 5th starter on this team. Relievers. This is awesome because when you do the relievers, well, why wouldn't I pick a whole bunch of closers, right? So now this is my all 2000s team. David Bednar, Jason Grilli, Tony Watson, Mark Melancon, Matt Capps, Joel Hanrahan, Jose Mesa, and Evan Meek. Now that is my bullpen and my starting rotation. I think that pitching setup can hang with anybody, period. We'll get into this matchup for the World Series, but that might be an all-time great rotation and relieving core. I'm not sure you can do much better than that. To be fair, when I'm comparing this to teams that just built teams for 2025, it's not fair. I'm taking 25 years of the Pirates' best pitchers and of course, my bullpen and my starting rotation are going to be better, right? Now let's get into the field where that's not as easily true. Let's start with catcher. Jason Kendall, and then Russell Martin. I went with. I thought about Cervelli, but Russell Martin, I just think had more of a power impact, and I like having him there. He probably wouldn't be my starter anyway with Jason Kendall. No lie. First base, Josh Bell. Yeah, I just can't think of anybody who was better really in the 2000s than Josh Bell. Maybe most of his best time wasn't spent at first base, but that's my guy. I'm going with him, and then I'll have filler be able to play elsewhere. Okay. Second base, I'm starting Neil Walker. Shortstop, Jack Wilson. Third base, Pedro Alvarez. And keep in mind, these are all like when they were at their peak, too. Like, you don't have to think about what happened to them. We're talking about when they're at their best. Outfield's kind of a mess. So let's just name off a bunch of players, and you guys can split them up between DH and outfield however you like, okay? I'm going to go Brian Reynolds. He's been here a long time, put up a lot of numbers. He's easily one of the best outfielders of this century. Andrew McCutchen, Brian Giles, Starling Marte, and Jason Bay. I think that's a pretty darn good outfield setup. Infielder overflow, I'd have Josh Harrison and Ke'Bryan Hayes. I think this is a pretty darn good team. It was fun going through this. I thought about some alternates, and I'll name a few of them here and you guys can tell me if I was right or wrong, or I should have maybe swapped in one of those guys and didn't. Um, in the outfield, I kind of felt like that was the list: Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Brian Giles, Starling Marte, Jason Bay. I can't think of anybody else that I would want in there. I mean, you could consider a guy like Gregory Polanco, but he wasn't good for a whole lot of his career. When he really was good, he was kind of a bit player. He was never a great fielder. I just think I would avoid him altogether there. First base, I really gave some serious consideration to Carlos Santana, which actually really made me sad. And I think as this decade continues, let's say we get to 2030 and I wanted to sit back and look at this again, I think that the door is open for me to wind up with Spencer Horwitz on my list. If he has a really good next 4 years or so, it wouldn't take much for him to overtake the first base position and kind of be the dude if we were to do like a all 20 or all 2000s list come 2030. It feels like he would be on it for me. Yeah, I would think like the only other guy I can think of right now who has a chance that, or at least has shown enough that you would consider the possibility that they would wind up being on this list, would be O'Neal Cruz. And that's if he kind of just turned it around and really did start to progress now, then I think, eventually you would see him work his way into this conversation. He certainly does some impressive things with the bat that nobody else does. Jason Bay, it would be really hard to not have him start. Same with Brian Giles. And when I really came down to it, I would struggle to put Andrew McCutchen as a starter, even in center field, even when he was at his peak, if only because I'll always have the possibility of picking Starling Marte. And Starling Marte at his peak, I'm sorry, was a better player, especially in the outfield. And I just think that has to be. I thought about Freddie Sanchez. I really did. I just thought, boy, with everything that I'm looking at for this team, I can't see him above Neil Walker. And when I get to the utility area, well, the only thing I really ever saw Freddie play was second base. And I'd rather have Josh Harrison there. And Ke'Bryan Hayes, he's a premium defender at third base. I think I'll need that with Pedro Alvarez as my starter. And if I ever wanted to use Pedro over at first base, I'd have that backup of Ke'Bryan Hayes. The starting pitchers, I didn't struggle much with this either. The only one that I thought about over Mitch Keller with any kind of real gravity was probably Jameson Taillon. And I mean, he just wasn't healthy here enough for me to feel like he totally deserved it. Charlie Morton didn't really spend the best years that he had here either. Garrett Cole, you could certainly argue didn't either, but he was better than people are remembering him. AJ Burnett, I could argue is on this list more for bravado than performance. I just feel like I would absolutely want him to be part of this group, especially like going into the playoffs. And that's the guy that I think I just had to pick. I don't know how you could go any other direction. As far as the relievers go, the only name that I didn't add on here that I probably would have if I was trying to be completely unbiased, I probably would have swapped Evan Meek or Jose Mesa for He Who Shan't Be Named. I think that he just did so much damage with the crimes he committed that I just don't want to mention him no matter what. But he certainly was one of the better relievers of this century. It's hard not to add him to it because he was a big part of things for a minute there. But this would be a killer bullpen. Think about you start with that rotation and then you get to this bullpen. David Bednar, Jason Grilly, Tony Watson, Mark Melanson, Matt Capps, Joel Hanrahan, Jose Mesa, Evan Meek. Ouch. Where are you scoring? I mean, like, that is a bullpen. That would be unbelievable to see something like that put together. I mean, I think actually San Diego did a pretty good job of putting together something that kind of closely matches that this year. That's the way their bullpen looked from the outside, just a wall of names. And man, it looked like it was going to be a gauntlet to get through. Somehow teams did. So, I mean, that in and of itself probably proves that just because the Pirates bullpen looks so great in our little team that we've put together here shouldn't mean they're an automatic victory, right? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what this matchup might look like. NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a real hassle. Between K's, long login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime for last night's Steeler game just a couple hours before it started. Saw tickets on there for about $1.50. Good luck getting those in advance, right? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Probably time for the most nonsensical segment of this whole thing, because obviously this could never take place. We'll never, ever know. I could run a computer simulation on it, I suppose, and then it would be just like a Pirates regular season, right? So we don't want to do that. Let's look at how these teams would actually match up. I mean, the Dodgers' top hitters, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Smith, they're elite. You know, I mean, it'd be really hard to say that they're not great. Blue Jays, Vlad Jr., George Springer, Alejandro Kirk, Bo Bichette. Man. Now, if I take the Pirates' top four from ours, it would probably be what? McCutchen, Giles, Reynolds, and Bell. Maybe Jason Bay squeaks in there for Reynolds. I'm not, you'd have to kind of make that decision yourself, but roughly those four versus the other four. I think head to head, the Dodgers for sure, and the Blue Jays probably, with their 2025 units, probably outdo my all-century team here, at least as far as best four players go. Rotation comparison. Well, the Dodgers' top starters are Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani. Wow. I mean, you've probably got the best pitcher in Japan quickly becoming one of the best pitchers in the United States. Blake Snell. I mean, how many accolades has he had over the years? Glasnow, made of glass, but when healthy, very good. And Ohtani, again, hasn't really pitched as much, but guy can hit 100. He can put it where he wants to. He's a bulldog. And yeah, one of the greatest hitters ever, too. The Blue Jays right now have Gausman, former Cy Young winner, Shane Bieber in the conversation for Cy Young, Max Scherzer, Cy Young, Yasevich, young guy out of nowhere. Very solid rotation, very solid makings of a rotation. Probably not as polished as the Dodgers, especially not with where Gausman is right now. And I would say Shane Bieber's probably not at the height of his powers either. The Pirates would have Garrett Cole, Paul Skeens, Francisco Liriano, and AJ Burnett. I could argue that Colin Skeens is a better 1-2 than anybody has on this in this series. And I think that's probably an argument I would make. Liriano was mystifying when he was top of his game, though. He really could be an X factor there. I don't know. Pirates bullpen, I think, is probably the best of the three, as it should be. Again, I'm building it from 25 years as opposed to just putting it together in a season. The Dodgers' star power, I think, is still unmatched, even with me having 25 seasons to choose from. The Blue Jays' clutch hitting gives them an edge in tight games. I think that still remains true. I didn't necessarily get a whole ton of the clutchiness here. When I picked guys, I kind of picked guys who were just, the best at their positions throughout the years. I didn't have the advantage of taking like a Kike Hernandez for my team. I suppose I could have, but I don't really think I have a list of guys in this century anyway who were particularly clutchy in the playoffs because they've only gone a couple times. How the hell are we going to develop anything that I consider clutchy in the playoffs when most of the guys I've made this team up of didn't make it? Pirates defense and speed could keep them in games, though. I think they could keep things close, and I think they could steal some wins with their pitching and that bullpen. If you get into the bullpen, I don't see you scoring against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I don't think that because of that, the Pirates offense would have to score nearly as much. So yeah, I think they could probably hang. They could probably hang. I don't think that they'd have nearly enough power. I'm sure you agree with that. But that pitching would just be so dominant. It would be very, very hard for teams to overcome it. I would think like, even if you say you win and you knock Paul Skeens out of a game after 4 innings, like you do exactly what the Blue Jays did to Blake Snell the other day. You let him either walk you or strike you out, and just eat his pitches to the point where you get him out of the game early. Okay, you get rid of Paul Skeens, and then the Pirates go ahead and turn it over to a bullpen that maybe starts with like Jose Mesa in the 6th. Like I think you're going to have a real hard time scoring runs against this team. So you could see the Pirates surviving on a little bit less offense, if only because they've got that kind of pitching staff. The Dodgers do too. So do the Blue Jays. We talked about those rotations being scary, but neither of them would have that same flawless bullpen. That bullpen's probably the biggest X factor in any kind of a matchup that we would come up with here for this theoretical set. Offensively, though, that's where I think that we would really come up against something. I don't even know how I would go about putting a lineup together here. I don't think, even with everything I picked, aside from Pedro Alvarez, that you have a big bopper. I don't think you have a guy that's just gonna like come up with those gigantic clutchy home runs. Maybe Brian Giles is probably your most consistent power hitter. So you'd probably want to put him in the heart of your order. You'd lead off with Marte. I don't see any reason to go any other direction than Marte. Maybe you have Andrew McCutchen second. Boy, he'd be a nice table setter in there, right? Then you come up on Giles, and maybe you go with Bay at 4 and Alvarez at 5. Yeah, I'm starting to talk myself into this maybe being a lineup that could do some damage. So maybe it's not all about pitching. Maybe it'll wind up being about hitting too. The Pirates all-century team could absolutely win a few games in a 7-game series. With Cole and Skeens leading the rotation and a deep bullpen, they'd be competitive. But beating either team in a full series would require near perfect execution and timely hitting, something the Blue Jays have mastered and the Dodgers can manufacture with their stars. Here's the thing, though. We always talk about timing, about getting everything to line up just right so the Pirates can finally compete. That's what we're being asked to believe can happen when you're a team that doesn't spend any money. You're expected to believe that at some point all the stars can align. I just went through 25 years of Pirates baseball, and I still think we might have what it takes. That should scare you a little bit. That's belief in what this franchise has produced. That's what it looks like. In 25 years of cherry picking everything I want from this franchise, I still think I have a hard time putting together a team that I feel surefire goes out there and wins a World Series. That's not a fun thing to feel. Could the Pirates All-Century team win the World Series? Maybe. Maybe not. But they'd make it a fight. That's more than we've seen in a long time. Send in your picks for who you'd include in the All-Century roster. Next episode, we're going to dive into some off-season targets, what the Pirates need to do to build a real contender. And remember, we're serious about Pirates baseball because somebody has to be. Let's go Bucks.